Violence is an unavoidable part of many games because it turns out most hell demons aren't interested in sitting down and talking out your differences over a cup of tea and a biscuit. Oh man, it's going to be even harder to drink tea or talk now without a lower jaw. So things may descend into an inevitable fight, but that doesn't mean you have to use the most horrible weapon you can find. That's why we have the Geneva Convention. Although actually I had a look and it turns out that it doesn't apply to video games. So I guess all the following horrible weapons are all nice and legal. Thanks Geneva. Enjoy and beware minor spoilers for the following games.
Greetings, Turok. I am Adon. The elders of the lost land, known as the Lazarus Concordance, have charged me with the task of guiding you on your quest to stop the Primogen.
Turok 2 Seeds of Evil continues the story of Turok, who is a dinosaur hunter, a job you'd be forgiven for thinking is pretty easy, considering how they all died out 65 million years ago. Turns out though that there are actually loads of dinosaurs around on account of what is probably best described as impenetrable sci-fi nonsense because we haven't got all day.
This once peaceful coastal village has been utterly destroyed by the Dinosaur army under the Primogen's command.
Yes, thank you. In his quest to defeat this dinosaur army, Turok must use a variety of weapons ranging from the low-tech, such as bows and arrows, to high-tech ordnance such as grenade launchers and flamethrowers. One weapon in Turok's arsenal, however, was so nauseatingly horrible that it has entered video game legend. That weapon is the Cerebral Boar. In other contexts, a cerebral bore is a person who corners you at a party and explains at length how Frankenstein is actually the name of the creator, not the monster. In the context of Turok though, a cerebral bore is a lavishly nasty gizmo that, when fired, homes in on the nearest dino, latches onto its skull, then spends what feels like forever whisking up the contents of their noggin and ejecting it onto a nearby wall before, in a particularly gratuitous bit of overkill, exploding. What's more, dinosaurs have famously small brains, so who knows where all this fluid is coming from. Ugh. Just like in Jurassic Park, the real message here is that man is the real monster.
And don't forget my rocky road.
Yeah, whatever. Let me guess. I can tell this is going to be an interesting day.
You know what your grandma thinks video games are? Postal 2 is basically that. Playing as Postal Dude, who is a stupid person's idea of a cool person, your job is to rampage around the town of Paradise, Arizona, murdering people, destroying property, and urinating on things.
Now the flowers will grow.
Oh sure, but when Hideo Kojima does it, you'll love it. Naturally, with a game as purposefully violent and grim as Postal 2, there are a selection of over-the-top weapons, including chainsaws, gasoline cans, and huge diseased cow heads. How many of those things is he carting around with him? He must smell like the bins out the back of a burger van. But at least those cows might have died of natural causes. By far the cruelest weapon in Postal 2 is actually a weapon modification. It's the so-called cat silencer, a device produced by placing a live cat on the end of your weapon and firing rounds through its mouth, as if any part of that process sounds like it's going to be quiet. The most ridiculous part is, this isn't even an effective suppressor, since it hardly affects the volume of the firearm. Alright, maybe not the most ridiculous part. In fact, every time you pull the trigger, the cat meows, which I would argue makes it louder. I'm overthinking this, aren't I? Postal Dude can fire the weapon a total of 9 times, once for each of the cat's 9 lives, obviously. After that, the poor kitty will be launched from the barrel of the gun and explode against the ground. So, he's more of a dog person, we're guessing?
What the? Ah, stupid dog.
Definitely not a dog person. Don't play Postal 2.
Can you handle a gun?
Jimmy! Oh,
He'd come and pick me up for a drive in the country. But I told Annie Ma, oh, no, Jimmy can't drive. He only 2-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, this.
Okay, anyone else, preferably living?
2003's Armed and Dangerous was a game that really loved its guns. So much so, in fact, that even the studio logo got in on the act at the start of the game. And LucasArts really hates that teacup. It wasn't just pistols and assault rifles either. Armed and Dangerous had a nice line in unusual weaponry, including a gun that reverses the planet's gravity, causing everyone to fall into the sky before things go back to normal and they plummet back to Earth to their deaths. But it's none of those that we're here to talk about today, despite the fact that that last one would probably kill thousands of nearby unrelated people, destabilize the planet, probably cause the harvest to fail. Everyone's shoes would be hats now. I mean, just think of the consequences. No, we're here to talk about the Shark Launcher. This is a projectile weapon which, as the name implies, launches sharks. These sharks then burrow through the earth before popping up in front of your presumably confused and terrified enemy, chomping down on them and waving them around like a winning lottery ticket. Alright, gotta bring you up on a few things there, Armed and Dangerous. 1. You have regular guns. You don't need to use a weapon that has your enemies literally eaten alive by an apex predator in a really unexpected way that's going to make their funeral both confusing and hilarious. And 2. Great white sharks currently have an IUCN conservation status of vulnerable. This means they're facing a high risk of extinction in the wild in the medium-term future, and that you shouldn't fire them out of guns into the ground where they can't survive, being aquatic animals. But in your defense, I guess there are very few other weapons available to you, just this, and all the other guns I mentioned. Oh, and a miniature black hole launcher. So, as you can see, this was basically the only option.
Why the big hurry?
If Dr. Channell is not extracted tonight, Datadyne will put him through mind conditioning, and we'll lose our best chance of finding out what Datadyne are up to.
Are they all expendable?
Don't joke. You have to be careful, Joanna. Code keys will only operate while the owner is alive. If you kill them, the key is useless.
In medical terms, psychosis is a serious condition, with sufferers having difficulty determining what's real and what's not. In N64 first-person shooter Perfect Dark, it's apparently something you can fire out of a gun. Dubious depictions of mental illness notwithstanding, the Psychosis Gun is actually one of the most useful weapons in Joanna Dark's arsenal. It's modelled after the more conventional tranquilizer gun, but operates very more horribly.
Damn it! I'm taking fire!
Shoot an enemy with it and they immediately become a super powerful ally, sprinting off ahead of you and cutting a swathe through the other baddies in the level.
No!
Should I be ashamed that he's a better shot than I am? You know what, I think I'll get over it. Better yet, tag multiple enemies with the weapon and you'll be able to waltz through the entire area with a little squad of absolute badasses, all of whom are going to have a lot of explaining to do to their supervisor on Monday morning. I mean, assuming they haven't already shot the supervisor, in which case, take the rest of the day off, I guess. Although Perfect Dark's player character Joanna Dark can happily swan off in her sci-fi helicopter at the end of a successful mission without a care in the world, spare a thought for the poor security guard who will finally come to his senses hours later to discover he's brutally mown down all of his work friends in a hail of automatic gunfire. And that's assuming coming to your senses later is even part of the Psychosis Gun's whole deal. Really feel like we should have researched this thing a bit more before we started shooting people with it.
Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility personnel. The time is 8:47 a.m. Current topside temperature is 93 degrees, with an estimated high of 105.
As first days on the job go, they don't get much worse than Gordon Freeman's first day at the Black Mesa Research Facility in Half-Life. First off, he's late, nightmare. Then, all his co-workers are weirdos, there's nowhere to get a decent cup of coffee, and, maybe worst of all, he's involved in an experiment that causes a resonance cascade that rips a hole between dimensions, allowing alien creatures from the Zen dimension to cross over and kill everyone.
Get away from the shutting down. No. Attempt to shut down. It's not shutting down. It's not.
Not looking forward to the 3-month probationary review. Luckily for Gordon, and to an extent humanity, it turns out that Gordon has an undiscovered talent for murdering things with whatever he finds lying around, ranging from the humble crowbar to more exotic weaponry like a crossbow and an alien hand that shoots bees. Sure. That's pretty horrible, but for real body horror, we look to one of the last weapons you get in the game, namely the experimental Gluon gun. The Gluon gun looks like a proton pack if the Ghostbusters' aim was to create ghosts rather than catch them. Who are you gonna call? Your loved ones! There's been a terrible accident. Your first clue that this experimental weapon is the sort of thing only a dangerously unhinged bad guy would use is the fact that the person who invented it and is standing right next to it, presumably because he doesn't want to let it out of his sight, tells you that he can't bring himself to use it on living things because of how horrible it is.
I built the Gluon gun, but I just can't bring myself to use it on a living creature. You don't look as if you have any trouble killing things.
The physicsy explanation for what the Gluon gun does to people is that it fires a beam of particles that interfere with the particles that hold atomic nuclei together, aka gluons. Blast a living being with this beam and it causes said being's cells to disassociate themselves from one another. The non-physicsy explanation is that it makes them explode. Really, really messily. Hey, next of kin. Hope you weren't planning an open casket funeral. But at least you will save on casket costs because your dearly departed remains will probably now fit into one Ziploc bag. Oh, don't look at me like that. You invented the thing. This is on you. And also the wall, floor, ceiling, some on my shoes. How are you with a mop?
Investigation into E99 is proving more fruitful than I had dared hope. The most recent discovery is that the element can be used to change the time state of items. This is test trial 143 of the time manipulation device, or TMD as it is more commonly referred to. As you can see, the TMD is able to revert items to their original state, or rapidly age them. Care must be taken not to point the device at a living creature. The effect is very unpleasant.
You might argue that the time manipulation device from Singularity isn't a weapon, merely a tool for manipulating time. See? Simply a tool. It's a weapon, definitely a weapon. Singularity starts off as a pretty conventional sci-fi shooter, but it's not long before you get your hands on the single most dangerous bit of handwear since the Infinity Gauntlet. What's great about the time manipulation device, or TMD to its friends, is that if you ever find yourself hauled in front of a tribunal for war crimes, you can claim that it technically doesn't kill anyone at all. It simply accelerates their aging until they die of natural causes. Wow, natural causes look really painful. Rapidly aging someone like they chose the wrong grail is objectively a horrifying thing to do, yes, but because this is a tool and not a weapon, the TMD works in both directions. So presumably if you twiddle the dial on the TMD to de-age someone, they'll regain their youthful vigour and get heavily into Fortnite. Or, at the very least, become a hyper-intelligent baby. You know, like Boss Baby. Anyway, simply flick the device to revert mode, let her rip and... Not keen on this Boss Baby reboot.
Everyone knows that if the zombie apocalypse happens, you're going to need to make improvised weaponry, like a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, or a mic wrapped in raw steak.
Hey!
I said if! The Dead Rising series knows this all too well, which is why a lot of the stuff you'll be using to defend yourself in Dead Risings 2 onwards is makeshift gear you've cobbled together out of 2 things and some duct tape. Seriously, any 2 things.
Damn straight.
That being said, there are some combo weapons that tip over from smart survival strategy into what the hell is wrong with you. Chief among these is the drill bucket from Dead Rising 2. This is a combo weapon made, you'll be unsurprised to hear, from a drill and a bucket, and it's the sort of thing that would only be thought up by someone who was enjoying this whole zombie apocalypse thing a little bit too much.
Damn right.
The combo card for this weapon describes it as DIY dental work at its finest, but just to reiterate, this is a bucket full of drills that you have to get dangerously close to a zombie to jam onto its head just so you can watch this happen. Chuck, my man, these were your fellow human beings a few hours ago. I mean, Earth scientists might be even working on a cure right now, and these zombies won't want to turn back into a human with half their heads missing. Do you want to maybe wait a bit before you start doing amateur brain surgery on them with a masonry drill? I suppose it could be worse. He could be wearing a mankini while doing it. Oh, come on! Where did he even find that? Jurassic Park got it wrong. Mankini is the real monster. What did I tell you about bringing up Boss Baby?
Look, it's got Baldwin, Buscemi, Kudrow in a madcap comedy caper for kids of all ages. It won an Oscar!
Right, cut his mic.
Oh, no,
Boss Baby
look,
protocol.
fine, look, okay, instead of that, why not watch this video up here, which is about the silliest names that apparently we were supposed to take seriously. And down here, there's a video from our sister channel, Outside Extra, which is about jump scares that turned out to be nothing at all. So enjoy those. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.
No more Boss Baby talk.
Come on, man.